From the post-millennial, once again, breaking: Trump names Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr. to presidential transition team. Quote, as President Trump's broad coalition of supporters and endorsers expands across partisan lines, we are proud that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard have been added to the Trump-Vance transition team. Now, here's the reality. Tulsi Gabbard was being set up to be the heir to the Democrats. She is a woman of color. She was, they loved her. She was a member of Congress. And then she betrayed Hillary Clinton for Bernie Sanders, and they lost their minds. RFK Jr., he's a Kennedy, need I say more? And they kept him out because these people don't want to adhere to their weird cult-like ideology or structure. And it's fascinating now that we see this. This is tremendous for Donald Trump. But why is it that the best possible Democrats are Republicans now?
I think it's that the parties themselves are a little bit irrelevant once you have Trump at the head of this party, because his values are not the uniparty values. So, you know, Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer may as well be in the same party, I think.
I'm going to say something that's unpopular, and I think that, you know, there's a lot of benefits to having Tulsi and RFK in the or on his transition team. I think they bring a really interesting perspective. I think it's good for, you know, moderate voters, undecided. But I do think that there's a chance that some of these appointments make the core MAGA base supporter kind of nervous, that the campaign that they were so invested in is changing. And I think part of that has to do with, you know, immigration and some other things. I don't know that it's true. I'm just saying that, you know, it's one thing to have one or two former Democrats, but when you start, if the dyed in the wool, like, I am voting MAGA, Trump is who gets me to the polls, voter starts to feel like he is changing too much, I think it will, I don't know, I think they'll still turn out for him, but it will create anxiety within his party that could mar the first couple months of his term.
I just think that, you know, Trump is relatively moderate on a lot of issues. Mm-hmm. And so are RFK and Tulsi Gabbard. But I think that I think that this alignment is not even so much about issues or policy, but it's more about worldview. And I think that that's a much more aligning and much more necessary joining than a policy joining. Because what we have now is a Democrat Party that looks at the world and says, we want, you know, more abortions, less children. We want to trans our kids. We want everyone to be forced to buy certain kinds of cars. We want everybody to be, you know, forced to buy certain types of foods. We want to control the way you live. We want the government to be your primary partner in life. And then you have, you know, RFK, Trump, Tulsi Gabbard, and a whole heck of a lot of MAGA people who would say, we want government out of our lives. We don't want you to tell us what to do with our kids. We don't want you to tell us what to do with our bodies. That means we don't want you pushing abortion. We don't want you to tell us what kind of car we get to drive or where we can live or what kind of housing we can live in. So I think it's more of a, you know, pro-government partner in your life worldview and an anti-government in your life worldview. And that's a much bigger divide. And there's a lot of policies, I think, personally, where I would compromise if it meant everybody just left me the hell alone. You know?
So I want to disagree, because we had this article from 2019, and it's, you know, here we go. I'll just pull this one up because there's a bunch of different versions of it, but this is Times Republican or Winchester Times. Memo to Trump, trade Bolton for Tulsi. This is July 1st, 2019. Conservatives were calling on Donald Trump to fire Bolton and bring Tulsi Gabbard on because Tulsi was right about foreign policy and Bolton was a maniac. I said back then, Donald Trump needs to bring on Tulsi Gabbard as a national security advisor or in some way his administration, and this would help win over many independents. I also said Andrew Yang because Andrew Yang was very popular among liberal-leaning independent voters. A lot of people say, no, he's crazy. He wants UBI socialist. Don't care. This is not Donald Trump saying he will enact those policies. It's Donald Trump saying, I'm listening to you as well. Mm-hmm. You are here in the conversation. Vote for me. Bringing on Tulsi, I think, is the right move. And it's late, but I'm happy to see it happening. And I actually think a lot of the MAGA people are going to be happy about it, especially since she's come around on 2A. She's endorsed Donald Trump, and it's a Democrat joining the ranks. This is basically like going to a MAGA voter and saying, you know, you were right the whole time. They're going to go, that's right, I was.
I think it's a really good play for Trump politically. I do. I think that it kind of is throwing back to the energy of his 2016 campaign, because for a while it just felt like this. Now the campaign was overtaken by the walls, Kamala fever. I'll say something now that might be controversial, and I know you're going to accuse me of having Israel derangement syndrome, but the way that I see it is that I don't totally see them as switching teams. They are all part of the Adelson Money Network. You have Tulsi and RFK Jr. running around with Rabbi Shmuley, the dildo salesman, and pledging allegiance to Israel. And for me, as much as I have supported Tulsi in the past, I was a big RFK Jr. fan, actually. I was. But the reasons that I love them is that they were committed to ending forever wars and to issues like free speech in the United States. And for me, all of that, even if you can understand Ukraine and you can, understand Syria the way Tulsi did, I just don't get how you remove those issues from the Israel lobby and the fact that they're the greatest threat to free speech in the United States with their anti-BDS laws. You just had NYU now say that you can't say Zionism on campus because that is also considered anti-Semitic. And they've actually criminalized speech around the country. And to see RFK and Tulsi just, pledge allegiance to Israel while...
They did, though?
Well, RFK, absolutely, and Tulsi, and they repeat the script. They repeat the script,
Yeah.
and they say all this stuff about Israel being our great ally. I mean, RFK himself was just doing fundraisers for Rabbi Shmuley's personal security, okay? So that's a little bizarre to me, and it just feels like it just discredits their position on war and speech.
I wouldn't call any of that Israel derangement syndrome. I'll clarify Israel derangement syndrome. We had a guy in the show who literally any question that was asked about anything policy-wise was Israel. We had a members-only caller who said, I'm concerned about the fentanyl crisis in West Virginia. And within 30 seconds, he was talking about Israel. And I'm like, this is the issue. My thing is anti-intervention. The United States' interests are not in sending out our troops to military bases overseas in every part of the globe and expanding the liberal economic order and nation building in Afghanistan. Whatever the parasite is that infected the United States probably in 1913 with the start of the Federal Reserve has manipulated what this country is supposed to be. I look at the history lessons of the Founding Fathers leading up into the Civil War and the lessons learned at the Civil War. And I'm like, wow, man, these people were fighting really, really hard. And they really just wanted to be left alone. And then at some point we were like, nah, let's go get involved in foreign entanglements, which is weird. And then after World War II, especially, we just stopped declaring war and started just doing whatever. I don't even want to say we, the parasite in this country.
Vietnam was like that. Like all of those later 20th century foreign wars that we got involved in were like that. There was no congressional oversight. And I was so horrified with that, with Desert Storm, right? And with the yellow cake and all of that. And I remember...
Or the babies. What was that woman? She claimed the babies were being killed
the Kuwaiti ambassador's daughter, I think.
Right.
The baby's getting unplugged from incubators.
Just lies.
Right.
Which is like actually what happened in Gaza, by the way.
Well, and so I was like watching this whole thing and just how Congress gave up its power. And that's something that I think is so frustrating because this is supposed to be the people's representatives. That's the people's house, right? That's where we get to tell the guy who lives down the street, who's representing us in Congress, what we think should happen for the benefit of our district and for the benefit of our nation. And they just gave up, not their power, they gave up our power to the executive branch. And I think that they really need to pull that back. And you've seen the executive power just expand and expand and expand, like not just in the 20th century, but you have like George Bush, it got bigger, Obama, it got bigger.
I just want to...
Trump, it got bigger. Biden, it got bigger to the point where now with, now you have a situation where they can tell schools, if you don't let boys go into girls' bathrooms, we're not going to give you free lunch aid.
Yeah, that's shocking. So let me just pose this question then, just as a thought experiment. Taking away the legitimacy of the Trump case and the political attacks on him aside, do you think that there's any dangerous precedent with the Supreme Court ruling that it does put the president above the law? And
it doesn't.
Yeah, it doesn't actually.
So it's crazy. The ruling is the president's official duties are immune because we are asking him to do those duties. If he engages in a behavior as to his official duties that we feel are not part of his official duties, he gets impeached. If he's impeached, he can then be criminally charged. That makes the most sense. If we lived in a system where you could criminally charge the president for anything he did, even under his presidential duties, you would have the weaponization of the system against their political opponents, which is literally what we're seeing.
Yeah.
That's why the SCOTUS ruling was important. Barack Obama murdered Anwar al-Awlaki and Abdulrahman al-Awlaki, 2 American citizens. By all means, I'll have a conversation with a neocon or a neolib about why Anwar al-Awlaki was a jihadi waging war against the United States and he was a traitor. And the argument is still, then he needs to have a trial, even if he's not there, that proves to a jury he, as an American citizen, he's levied war against the United States and its people, and thus that's a death penalty. Someone is attacking us. Well, Obama didn't do that. He blew him up, and then he blew up his son. Now, I think Barack Obama should be criminally charged for that. That being said, I haven't seen the full court case and the evidence. So what we should do is he should be post-presidency impeachment, which is never going to happen. But this is what should happen. The impeachment is, as president, you are given military options by your advisors, your lieutenants, your commanders, et cetera. They would give Barack Obama something. It was referred to as the disposition matrix. They called it the kill list. And they would basically give Barack Obama a list of people that looked like baseball cards, folders, and said, which one should we exterminate? Should we kill? And Barack Obama signed off on each and every one. And it involved American citizens. And the Constitution says you can't just go and kill American citizens. He did anyway. But it's still a part of his official duties. I respect that he should be impeached for that. And what would happen now is an analysis of those actions that happened. This is 12 years ago? When I think it was it 12 years ago Abdulrahman was killed?
2016, no,
not
gosh, not
2016. I think it was 2012, but I could be wrong. So we would impeach him. We would have an inquiry. Congress would then look at the evidence and say, we do not find sufficient reason to believe Barack Obama had a legitimate official duty in killing a 16-year-old American citizen in Yemen, a country we are not at war with, and bombing a civilian restaurant. After the impeachment, then the jurisdictions with interest, the locations with jurisdiction, I should say, or the jurisdictions with standing, could then criminally charge Barack Obama, which would include San Diego, Boulder, Colorado, as well as the federal government.
So it wouldn't prevent a criminal charge of a president committing war crimes in the future. It
just means that. So here's the challenge. Let's say you have a president and an adversary blows up one of our ships in the I don't know, South China Sea or whatever. We have a ship going near Taiwan and China blows it up. The president responds by sending in a strike group or whatever, which encounters an unidentified vessel that will not respond to hail, and then it opens fire on the U.S. So he instructs them to blow it up, destroying what turns out to be a Russian vessel that was working alongside China, triggering a response from Russia saying, you jumped the gun. Now, there's questions about whether it's the official duty of the president to, in a time of emergency after we were attacked, and let's just say, like, the story is legitimately we were attacked. It's witnessed by everybody. There's videos, unprovoked attack on American vessels. The president issues an immediate reprisal and response against the vessel that attacked us. You can try to impeach him, but I think a reasonable political body says, well, look, the president has to make difficult choices. It may have started a war, but this is official duties. Now, let's say the president sends in a vessel and then fakes a military action, bombs itself, and then lies about it, and then claims it was an official duty. We have to have that investigation. Is he actually acting in his official capacity? Turns out he wasn't. Then he's impeached. Then he's convicted, removed from office for war crimes, and then he's criminally charged. The reason why that's important, in the event the president takes a legitimate action in the interest of the United States that was a difficult decision, but a decision that had to be made, he shouldn't go to prison for it because a Democrat gets mad he's a Republican or a Republican mad he's a Democrat.
Yeah. No, I guess it then becomes a case about what is presidential duty, and that's what gets debated in the future. Not that I also think that any president's ever going to get prosecuted for something bad that they did. It's only going to be something like I would have loved if they would have tried this with Bush, but
oh man, Bush
he tortured some folks.
All of them. I mean, Obama and Bush.
Clinton. I mean, Clinton set the precedent for the Iraq War, right? Bombing Iraq without congressional approval. And
it's the challenges for the most part. Official duties, we know what they are, but you are right. There's a lot where it gets into this really like fine print-esque area where it's like, well, the president was having a conversation about his personal vehicle, but it was in the Oval Office. Is that part of his official duties? And the argument is, well, his security in a personal vehicle matters. So this conversation is, someone will say, no, he's talking about private personal finance stuff with someone. Just because in the building doesn't make it. And then you're having that argument, and that's where things get messy. The real problem is not whether or not we can impeach and then convict a president. the SCOTUS argument, I'm glad it came down the way it did. The real problem is we don't have a functioning political body.
No, we don't.
If we had honest politicians, first of all, the 17th Amendment is garbage. If we had actual representatives who cared about the facts and wanted to do right by this country and not just partisans trying to fundraise and sound good on the internet, and you had senators who actually cared to represent their states, you would have had Barack Obama impeached. First, as an impeachment inquiry over the killing of Abdurrahman al-Awlaki. Then they would argue, in fact, his actions were part of his official duties as president, and for that reason, he cannot be criminally charged for this unless we impeach him for it. We then find him to be criminally negligent in the murder of Abdurrahman al-Awlaki, and for that, we find it to be a high crime or misdemeanor. The president, perhaps well-intentioned, used with reckless disregard the might of the U.S. military and blew up a civilian restaurant, killing civilians as well as an American. And he says it was an accident. I'm sorry, when you're driving down the road and you're reckless and you accidentally kill someone, you do get criminally charged. For that reason, while it was Obama's duty to answer these calls, he acted recklessly and with disregard for human life, particularly of an American, and for that he should be impeached, convicted, removed from office, and then criminally charged for reckless homicide or something to that effect. Yeah. If we could prove in that trial that Barack Obama said, I'm going to send a message to all jihadis who would wage war on America by killing the son of a terrorist, which I think is what he did, then that's life in prison. That's murder. That's first degree. I believe that Barack Obama killed Abdurrahman al-Awlaki because he wanted to send a message to jihadis that the United States, I don't even want to say we, the United States is willing to murder your children wherever they may be. He wanted them to feel that their children would be safe nowhere. We're not at war with Yemen. We have no legal authority for bombing civilian locations in Yemen, and Obama did it anyway. And the argument from the Obama administration was we were targeting a different guy. And we accidentally got him. Why did you bomb a civilian restaurant in a country we're not at war with in the first place?
Shocking.
And shout out to Luke Rudkowski, We Are Change, who actually was at the DNC. And I can't remember, was it Charlie Gibbs who they asked? And the guy, or I can't remember who it was. He said, well, he should have had a better father. So this was pre-2012, actually. Should have had a better father. That's the justification for Barack Obama bombing a civilian restaurant and killing an American as well as other civilians. That is nightmarishly illegal, in my opinion. And the man, but now I'm gonna just I'll hit it out of the park with this one, or not probably the right turn of phrase I'm trying to use, but let's exemplify this to the umpteenth degree. After everything I've just explained, the man has faced no justice, not even an inquiry from Congress, not even an impeachment inquiry, and Donald Trump is facing multiple criminal prosecutions for the most absurd and insane things imaginable. Yeah. The first president to actually get charged, and it's BS, because there are criminal elements in our government that are willing to let evil people do whatever they want. And Donald Trump is, I got to be honest, I think for a lot of these things he was involved in at the federal level, he was bumbling about. I don't mean that disrespectfully. I think they went to him and said, Mr. President, bomb this country. And he was like, we're not doing that. And they were like, no, we are going to do it. And he goes, no, you're not doing that. And they're like, do you not get it, Mr. President? We're the CIA. We're telling you who is going to be targeted. And Trump's like, no, we're not doing that. And so then they're like, we've got to remove this guy. Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.